Over the weekend and throughout the Easter holiday, Donald Trump persisted in making abhorrent statements on his social media platform. On Easter Sunday, he even went so far as to suggest the possibility of World War III. In stark contrast, President Biden's post conveyed warm wishes to those celebrating Easter in churches and homes all over the world, expressing the sentiment, "Happy Easter and may God bless and keep you." It's worth noting the striking disparity between the two leaders' messages. As we reflect on Jesus' sacrifice and renew our commitment to loving God and our neighbors with compassion, it's important to note the stark contrast between two recent posts. Donald Trump's Easter message, written in all caps, extended Easter greetings to all, including those he accuses of dreaming endlessly of destroying our country and being incapable of dreaming about anything else. This statement is divisive and casts a wide net of blame on unspecified individuals or groups. It stands in stark contrast to the message of unity, compassion, and forgiveness that is traditionally associated with the Easter holiday. They don't realize that having a border and powerful wall is a good thing, and having voter ID, all paper ballots, and the same-day voting will quickly end massive voter fraud. And to all those weak and pathetic rhinos, radical left Democrats, socialists, Marxists, and communists who are killing our nation, remember we will be back, Trump wrote. In stark contrast, President Biden's Easter message was a simple and sincere expression of well wishes to all those celebrating the holiday. In contrast to Donald Trump's Easter message, which was divisive and focused on political issues, President Biden's message was a simple and heartfelt expression of good wishes to all those celebrating Easter. Jill and I join Christians around the world in celebrating Easter Sunday. We wish you hope, health, joy, and the peace of God, which passes all understanding. Happy Easter, and may God bless and keep you, he wrote. The contrast between the two messages, as noted by Lee Aronson, is striking and emphasizes the vastly different approaches and priorities of the two leaders. It doesn't matter what your policy preferences are, who, and I mean who, looks at this and says, yeah, let's give nuclear weapons to the guy on the right. When you compare and contrast the Easter messages of Donald Trump and President Biden, the difference is stark. Our Midas Touch Twitter handle posted the statements side by side, and the contrast is clear. As Lee Aronson notes, it's not about policy preferences. How can anyone look at Donald Trump's deranged all-caps statement and say, yeah, let's give nuclear weapons to that guy? Do we want him making decisions over life, death, health, and well-being for ourselves, our families, our neighbors, our communities, our country, and the world? This is a message we talk about constantly on the Midas Touch Network. It's not a political matter, it's a matter of recognizing the completely dangerous and deranged conduct of the modern-day mega Republican engagement. Republicans are not having conversations about policy issues. They're not talking about tax policy, government size, or anything substantive. The Republicans aren't talking about policy, they're not discussing tax policy, government size, or anything substantive. They claim to want small government, but then use big government to control women's bodies. They spread lies about COVID and global pandemics. They sing with the J6 choir during insurrections and pledge allegiance to insurrectionists instead of the flag. This should not be a political view, but the Republican Party has been taken over by the mega Republicans led by a co-leader like Trump. Imagine being a devout Christian and thinking that the lunatic who writes in all caps is the right person to lead our nation. As Brian Tyler Cohen notes, compare the statements of Biden and Trump and guess which one is the leader of the so-called evangelical Christian party. However, Donald Trump continues to persist, posting messages such as, "Can you believe that the completely corrupt Biden disinformation administration is attempting to blame Trump for their incompetent withdrawal from Afghanistan? They are the worst in history, absolutely terrible people who always point fingers at others for their numerous mistakes and blunders." It's important to note that every time Donald Trump speaks or posts, it's a projection, essentially a confession. It seems that everything Donald Trump and the mega Republicans do is to justify their actions and assign blame elsewhere. It's deplorable that others resort to repugnant conspiracy theories to mask their own actions. The truth is, it was Donald Trump and his administration who extended an invitation for the Taliban to visit the United States. Additionally, they released 5,000 Taliban terrorists without imposing any preconditions or establishing an agreement. It wasn't a negotiation. Donald Trump and Mike Pompeo simply ordered the Afghan government at the time to do so or face the consequences. The current leaders of the Taliban were all previously incarcerated and were released by Donald Trump without any type of trade or deal. It was essentially an invitation to Vladimir Putin to promote further instability for America abroad and provide Russia with an opportunity to fill the various voids. During Donald Trump's tenure, he directed the release of 5,000 Taliban prisoners. It's shocking to see Mike Pompeo in photographs with Taliban terrorist leaders. It's pathetic. The Trump administration set the date for the withdrawal and freed all Taliban terrorists, paving the way for them to regain control over Afghanistan. Biden did what needed to be done, and I'm pleased that America is no longer in Afghanistan thanks to the policies of President Biden. Unlike Donald Trump, who always promised but never delivered, President Biden follows through and gets things done. Remember the repeated promises of Infrastructure Week from the previous administration? Or the claim of a bigger and better healthcare plan than Obama's? All empty promises, with nothing to show for it. Donald Trump even said that he would have delivered it if he was re-elected, which is highly unlikely. Donald Trump made the outrageous claim that Mexico would pay for the wall, but it never happened. In fact, it was Steve Bannon who convinced Trump to create a GoFundMe campaign, which was unsuccessful in raising funds for the wall. Despite this, Trump still pardoned Bannon for his involvement. Trump's grifter friends, including Bannon, used the donations for their own benefit, even taking expensive trips on yachts with billionaires. Ultimately, the American people were left to foot the bill for the wall, which was a colossal waste of money. The Chinese billionaire who was arrested a few weeks back was a donor to Steve Bannon's cause. Interestingly, Bannon was arrested on the same yacht as the billionaire by federal agents. Despite this, Trump pardoned him for the charges. Currently, Bannon is facing state charges in New York. The billionaire donor was charged by the feds for stealing money from investors to fund his extravagant lifestyle and propaganda media. It's clear that Bannon's association with this billionaire has caused significant legal problems for both of them. Donald Trump uses various networks, including disinformation echo chambers and social media platforms, to spread misleading information about Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden. He reposts content from his loyal followers, who often spout conspiracies about Biden being a pervert or a traitor trying to overthrow America. Despite the dangerous nature of these QAnon conspiracy theories, Trump reposts and even responds to them, such as when someone claimed that he saved more children from sex trafficking than any other president. This kind of rhetoric is not only false, but also dangerous. Trump posted such content over Easter weekend. Later, Trump targets DeSantis and reposts someone who claimed that if DeSantis runs for office, he will try to ruin Trump's chances of winning the election. Trump responds with true and adds that DeSantis was a follower of Paul Ryan who wanted to cut Social Security and Medicare. He even reposts a meme that mocks Ron DeSantis. Another post claimed that the only supporters of Ron DeSantis were the rhinos and the deep state who controlled him and called for him to be removed from office. The post listed various groups, including the Club for Growth, the Lincoln Project, and George Soros. The mention of George Soros in such a context is often associated with anti-Semitic conspiracies. The post goes on to claim that Soros is funding DeSantis and that he is spineless and incompetent. Ron DeSantis is attacking Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan District Attorney, and resorting to right-wing, anti-Semitic tropes. This is because he is part of the mega cult, and this is what they do. DeSantis claims that Bragg is a George Soros-funded prosecutor, even though there is no evidence that Soros ever gave money to Bragg. This is a complete and utter anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. Unfortunately, the right wing continues to repeat these lies over and over again. This is why people like DeSantis and McCarthy are so dangerous. You're probably familiar with individuals who lack backbone, those who, ultimately, have no genuine authority. They strive to attain power through various means, yet once in position, they're powerless. The reason being that they're part of a cult of Donald Trump. When Trump claims that your funding is from George Soros, all cult adherents accept it, perpetuating this absurdity. Donald Trump is now using the conspiracy theories surrounding George Soros against you as a weapon. Trump labels you as a member of the China-loving club, alongside other individuals he deems as weak, such as Paul Ryan and Karl Rove, who cannot resist him. This is a typical pattern of authoritarianism, where accusations and smear campaigns escalate, leading to an eventual labeling of you as being George Soros-funded. This slippery slope of authoritarianism has been repeated countless times, where first, prosecutors in a Democratic-led state are targeted, then, it moves on to you, and now, DeSantis. Donald Trump accuses you of being funded by George Soros, using an anti-Semitic trope against you. However, you remain silent, lacking a backbone and standing for nothing, and falling for anything. Furthermore, Trump shares a bizarre picture of himself humping the American flag, painted with the American flag on his face, which he also uses as his avatar. A supposed Yale PhD posted this picture, calling Trump the best president ever. Trump thanks the supposed Yale PhD for sharing the ridiculous photograph. That's how Donald Trump chooses to spend his Easter weekend, behaving in a deranged, vile, and despicable manner, as evidenced by his previous posts. It doesn't matter what your policy preferences are, what's important to address is policies such as tax policy, government programming, and spending, as well as ensuring that all Americans have access to healthcare. These topics are open for debate and discussion, but the mega Republicans refuse to engage in policy talks. Instead, they exhibit cult-like behavior, rallying around a dangerous and malignant narcissist who is a maniac. It's crucial to call this out.